Welcome everybody to this week, and well, what a week it has been. Ran into a few technical difficulties, so the stream did start about 3 minutes late. Some of those technical difficulties, my system had to reboot as a result, and I have lost all the news. The news is gone. We don't have any news whatsoever. So what can we do? I do have, of course, all the pictures. I got all the headlines. So we'll still talk about the news. I just don't have as much insight as I normally do. So, oh well, that's cool. That's cool. Those are the type of things that happen on a live show. Sometimes things go wrong, and what can you do? You can just recover from it. The good news, of course, is that this is the first Sunday of the month. So that, of course, means we got some membership giveaways today. So we're going to be doing that. What else are we going to do? I will, of course, be answering every single question you guys throw into the chat, and we'll chat up a storm as the afternoon goes. So it's still going to be a pretty great day. Okay, let's start very quickly with the folks in the chat room. There's a whole bunch of people in here already. We started off with Jonathan coming in saying, waiting for the stream, and Jonathan had to wait an extra 3 minutes. So I do apologize once again for that. A big reminder, of course, all super chats, super thanks. What's the other one? Super stickers. They all now count towards the 0 to 100K. So anytime you guys feel like throwing some cash at that challenge, that's how you do it. And that's going to be kind of cool. And I also said almost time for coffee. That means, yes, I do have my coffee with me today. So here you go, Starbucks. Time to sponsor me. It's not time to have a drink yet, though. So we'll wait till the old mouth gets a little bit more on the dry side. And I also mentioned as well, this is that first Sunday of the month. So we got those free memberships happening, and let's start. Let's do that right away. Let's get that going. Give me a second here. Pull up. Here we go. All right, let's drop a few right now. We'll see who the lucky winners are. There we go. I have just processed it. It should be popping up here in a moment. All right, let's see who wins. This would be a funny time for a certain someone to win, but I'm not going to say his name and jinx it. So, all right, here we go. We got Prairie Investor. We got Mario. We got Vineet and Wayne and Allison. All right, a whole bunch of people there. There we go. That's a great way to start off a Sunday live stream. So Terry Crow is in the house with a hi Candace and the rest of the gang. Prairie is in the house, and Wayne is in the house, and Vineet. Look at that. Three of the winners right there in a row. Holy banana bread. That is pretty darn awesome. And Jordan's in the house with a happy Sunday, everybody. Always good to see you, Jordan. Definitely good to see you. We got Bleak in the house. We got Mary in the house. And here is Mario. Mario, another person who won a membership today. Good Vibes is in the house with a good old hello. And there we go. There's a happy Mario. And and a happy Prairie. And a happy Ian. So kind of cool. Ian's like, well, Ian's not happy. It's like, I might have to finally pay for my membership. Holy banana bread. Yeah, that's the thing. Medea's in the house with a hello. Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll get to the first news story. But like I said, I got no notes. I am flying by the seat of my pants on this one. But, hey, it's still called This Week. The news must go on. All right. So our first story is all about LNG. So that there is liquefied natural gas. So good old Biden down in the U.S. has decided that there can be no more brand new liquid natural gas processing facilities built in the U.S. So he's no longer going to approve anymore. They are at a standstill. Now, this is kind of a big thing for Canada. And the reason it's a big thing for Canada is that, well, we are one of the world's top producing liquid natural gas producers. And we don't actually have our own our own export system. So we do not have currently a facility to export our own natural gas. We rely on the US. Now, we do have one on the West Coast that is getting, it's nearing completion. But I don't remember off the top of my head exactly when it will be complete, but it's nearing completion. But as of right now, we don't have one. We have nothing. The US does have 7. Now, those 7 are not going to be shut down. There's nothing like that. And any that have already been approved, any of these facilities that have been approved already, they're all going ahead. But there'll be no new approvals. And even right now, by 2030, the US is going to significantly increase how much they can export. But here's the thing. We're a country right now relying on them, and we have a lot to export. So it's not the best thing for Canada. Hopefully this gets fixed somewhere down the line. Hopefully this does not end up being a long-term thing for the US because, and of course, if it does, then perhaps Canada needs to be building maybe a couple more of those facilities of our own. That's what I think. What do you guys think about that? Let's go over here and say hi to Jay. Jay is in the house. Terry is in a Yahoo. Thank you. And Madi says, some office REITs are so low, it's like they will go bankrupt tomorrow. Yeah. I've been saying that I'm pretty bullish on the REITs, especially with what's happening with the interest rates, with them looking to come down later in the year. Here's the issue, though. When you look at office REITs, if you have a REIT that's very much straight office, there's still a bit of an issue with a lot of offices that haven't completely filled back up. And also with some of the newer models, some of the work at home and some of the hybrid models, that's not really great for office REITs. So if you're looking at a good REIT, you want one that has, you don't want one that's strictly office. Something like, for example, RioCan's a good one, or any REITs, any REITs that have a good diversification. Those tend to be the ones that will be better for you. Oh, how did that? There we go. I read the question without putting it up. I'm so sorry. Sammer's in the house. And Vineet's celebrating a big woohoo because Vineet won a channel membership today. There we go. Fantastic. Pretty soon, I'm actually going to be reaching out to the channel members about what you guys want me to do in the channel membership live stream. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up pretty soon. We also have, guys, we're almost at 3,000 subs. So we're like, a handful or so away. I think we were 8 away before the stream started. So that video, that parody video is coming up pretty darn fast. So, yeah, I mean, if we hit 3,000, obviously I don't have it made yet, but it will happen. Wayne says, Candace, can you transfer my membership to another poster? I join your stream to update events in Canada. Unfortunately, I can't. I have no control over the memberships. When it comes to the ones that are gifted, like if I want to gift one to a particular person, like let's say Terry Crow, I think, he's here all the time. I want to give one to Terry. I can't even if I wanted to say, hey, I want to buy one for Terry, I can't do it. It's all completely random and done completely through YouTube. They kind of I don't know what the algorithm decides who gets it. So, I don't know why. I don't know what it looks at. Maybe it looks at, it looks at how active you are for one. It also will look at, I don't know if it looks at if you hit the like button. So maybe folks hit the like button, just a quick little shout out for the like button. So I don't know how it's controlled. That's unfortunately all I can say about that. All right, let's pull up the next news story that I have to pull completely out of my head. Oh dear. That's to me, that's just hilarious. I can't believe, like, normally my system completely will back up all of this stuff, and it didn't back it up. And I was like, what? How can it not back it up? Plus, I didn't really have time. I had basically the system crashed 5 minutes before the stream was set to start. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Anyway, let's pull up our next story. So this is all about rents. And hey, you guys get to see the new pictures. So we've started doing this new picture thing over here. So yeah, so rents have been breaking records in 2023. They have two records. One, rents have rose faster than any other year on record. So we've seen such an increased amount of rent. Now, I don't have the exact numbers to throw at you because I had those all written on my document that I use for this show, and that's what's all gone. Now, the other thing, it's not just rents. Vacancy rates on the other end are lower than they've ever been. So vacancy rates are breaking records, record lows. Rents are breaking record highs. So we're definitely seeing pretty much a big issue when it comes to the good old rents. And I'm still like, I had so much information I wrote down on this one. But that's fine. We'll survive. And let's see. Wayne says, I'll join later in the stream to allow others to win the membership. It doesn't matter if you're here, though, Wayne. That's the whole thing. I've seen people who aren't here win memberships. It really, once again, it's the algorithm. I think it's your overall interaction on the channel. But here, you know what? Since you're concerned that you want a membership, you'd like to give it to somebody else, here's what I'll do. I'll just throw another membership right now. We'll say that this is transferring yours, but it really isn't. But we'll do it. Here we go. Just give me a second here. Bang, boom. All right, it's done. It should come up here in a moment. Perfect. All right, here we go. So this one here, even though I'm gifting it, this one is from Wayne, whoever receives it. And Sammer, there you go, Sammer. You have gotten a membership from Mr. Wayne Smith. All right. Kendall says, there we go. So TOU won't be recovering anytime soon. So TOU, tourmaline, it really boils down to what the oil market does. Now, tourmaline they're a very big company. They have very deep pockets. Even when oil was struggling last year, tourmaline was still giving out special bonus dividends all through last year. So you got your 4 quarterly, and you also got 4 special dividends last year. So that is just fantastic. So TOU is one of these ones that even if they're a little down, it's something you can pretty much just sort of forget about. They will come back up. They will recover. So it's not something it's a company I would never really sell at a loss personally. All right. Vic is here. Hey, Vic, how are you doing? And he's got to keep the volume low so Ma won't hear and raise the rent. Oh boy. Yeah, you got to be careful. Be careful of them moms raising your rent on you. Richard says, my friend just told me his rent is $540 a month. Holy banana bread. Now, Quebec is one of the places in Canada where you can, where the rents aren't quite as bad as a lot of other cities. But yeah, $540 a month. That's fantastic. It makes me want to learn French. That's for sure. Terry says, Terry Crow Inc. will happily accept donations from Wayne Smith. All right. There we go, Wayne. Everybody wants a donation from you. I think we've started something. Sammer says, thanks. All right. And Jordan says, our rent is $1,185 inclusive for a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath open concept apartment. And that's actually not that bad. Now, Jordan, you live in, I believe it's Sarnia. But yeah, I mean, try to get that in Toronto. Oh, I don't think you can. Let's see. Terry says, very diplomatic gesture. I do my best. I certainly do my best. Vic says, USA fighting in Mideast, oil ought to go higher. You would think so. You would think so. It's kind of interesting. Even with a lot of the stuff that's been going on in the Middle East, the prices just haven't really been going. But a lot of that too is the U.S. also isn't really working on getting that strategic oil reserve filled up. They should have taken advantage. Like, if I were the president of the United States, I would have completely had that thing already filled up. When oil was low, my reserves are going back up. But, that hasn't happened. Now, we do, of course, have an election coming up this year. And depending on who gets in, whether it be Biden or Trump. And as far as I know, it's going to be Biden versus Trump. I think Trump has a couple more little hurdles in front of him. I think there's even a legal challenge as to whether he's even allowed to run that's coming up next. But if Trump gets back in, he's the type that will get that strategic reserve filled back up. So I think he would be the better choice for the prices of oil if you're looking for them to go up. And yeah, Wayne saying, huh? Ian says, I'm thinking I could make more money renting my house out than selling and putting it in the markets. But then I have to deal with renters, but owning real estate is good for diversification. It is. Now you could hire a rental company to handle all of that stuff with the renters as well. Or if you get really lucky, because I know where you're right now in Colombia, if you get really lucky and you know somebody who is looking for a place that you can trust, like you get a really good tenant, you may not need a lot of work. But there's definitely people who can do that. And correct about Sarnia. Mark is in the house saying 2,300 Midtown Toronto, and that is cheap. Yeah, yeah. Now, how many bedrooms is that, Mark? Just out of curiosity, because when I think 2,300 in Toronto, I'm thinking like a really small one bedroom, because Toronto is just crazy. Now, and I've lived in Toronto. I initially lived downtown in Toronto when I lived there, and a very, very small one bedroom at that point was about 1,600. Now, this is about 6-7 years ago. I would hate to see how much that apartment would be today. And Vic is saying, should have got Meta at 88. Yeah, Meta has done crazy good. And we're going to talk about Meta. We actually have a story on Meta, even though I lost all my data. I'm sure we'll muddle through it fine. Ian says, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, rent is around $1,000 for a one-bedroom after utilities. Okay, so that's not too bad. We have Enid in the house, and we got King a Day in the house with a hello for everyone. Vic says, Moose Jaw should pay people to live there. Oh, gosh. And I'm trying to think, Moose Jaw, I think, now I could be, no. Wait a minute. No, Moose Jaw, I think, is on the Saskatchewan side, and then Medicine Hat is on the Alberta side, or do I have that mixed up? I'm trying to remember, because I know the one on the Alberta side has this giant teepee there, which is kind of cool. But I'm trying to think which one is which. I can always get those two mixed up completely. So it's a one bedroom. Yeah, okay. So I wasn't thinking it would be super, super, super big. All right. Let's pull over to our next little story here. And we'll see what I can remember on this one. Okay, yeah, this one, I remember this one. So fewer Canadian babies. So a report came out right now that the fertility rate right now in Canada is 1.33. Now, when we're talking about a fertility rate, this is basically, each woman in the country is supposed to have, a certain number of babies to be able to maintain our population. The number actually that we need to have is 2.1. And the reason it's 2.1, if you think about a couple, you think, okay, well, you just need 2, right? But the 0.1, that makes up for basically, people who die before they get to the point where they have kids. But we're at 1.33, which is really, really low. So if we completely shut down immigration, what would happen is the population would be shrinking big time. And when that population shrinks, that hurts our GDP. So that ends up hurting the economy overall. So this has been one of the reasons why the Canadian government has been sort of really, really ramping up immigration to make up for that fertility issue that we're having. So this is kind of one of the things. So why, of course, is this happening? There's a few different reasons. One reason is there's a lot of Canadians who are like, I just simply can't afford to have children because the economy is costing too much. Inflation's out of control. We don't want, we can't afford to have kids under no circumstances. Plus, then there's the other group of people, and sometimes they may be the same group, who are like, my God, the world is so dangerous today. There's, we got war, we got, Russia and Ukraine. There's, nuclear rattling, all of this stuff, and they're just afraid to bring a baby into the world. So that's kind of where they think a lot of this And I would actually put more on the economy because, I mean, back during the Cold War, we didn't have problems producing children. And the threat for, nuclear war then was like everybody was scared to death of it. So just one of these things to keep in mind. That's one of the reasons that we have put a big pressure on immigration. Now, here's the thing though. And I remember watching a video not that long ago on the world population, and the entire world's population right now is, there are places that are speeding up, but there's a lot of countries where it is starting to slow down, where this fertility rate is coming down lower and lower. So we will get to a point where I know a lot of people look at the population and think, oh, it's just gonna keep on getting exponentially bigger. But there's a point where we're gonna stop. Like, we're not gonna get to a point where there's 100 billion people on the planet. It's gonna turn around and it's gonna start coming back down. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Anyway, it's incredibly fascinating to pay attention to what is going on when it comes to this. It comes to the whole immigration system. And I know some places in Canada, like I mentioned this before, but Nova Scotia used to be that way, a negative population rate for a long, long time. So immigration became huge, huge there. Okay, and Ian's helping me out here. So Moose Jaw is Saskatchewan. There we go. And Medicine Hat then is Alberta. There we go. We got it. Perfect. Wayne says property companies in Canada are no longer allowing subleasing. If you have a friend who wants to take over your lease, not allowed. Okay. Well, you see, and here's the thing, Wayne. I was thinking that in Ian's case, I think he owns the house. So in that case, but yeah, subleasing is one of these things. And I have a funny subleasing story if you guys want to hear it. So I used to, at one point I had leased this house in Calgary, and at the time I was working for Superstore, and I got promoted to the other side of the city. So this was in the Northeast, and I got promoted to like the Southwest, and because I got a management position there, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm way too far away from work, so I wanted to move, but I was in this lease. And I didn't know what to do. And then one night I had to get to the Southwest to that Superstore, and the last C train had already gone. And I was just like, I don't even have any cash on me. So I called a cab anyway. So I called this cab. The cab comes over. I went out and I talked to him. I said, look, I got no money, but I got this old electronic typewriter that you might like. And he was like, oh, well, let me come in and try it out. So I brought him in, tried it out. He liked it. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll drive you to the Southwest for that. So, the taxi driver was driving me there, and then we were having a conversation, and he was like, oh, your house is really nice. I'm looking for a place like that for my family. I said, oh, really? So by the time he got me to my destination in the Southwest, we had already struck a deal. So he was like, yeah, he was like, I'll pick you up in the morning when you're done. Because I was going to be there overnight for our overnight team. And he says, I'll pick you up in the morning. I'll bring you home. And, by the time I got home, I had a big wad of cash because he gave me all this money to say, here, look, and he says, do you mind if I start moving my family in right away? I'm like, nah, go ahead. Well, the gentleman, the taxi driver, I think his family was from the Middle East. But I did not realize how big his family was. All of a sudden, there were like so many, like it was a 3-bedroom house, but I could swear there was probably about 20 people who came and started living with me because my place wasn't even ready for another 2 weeks. But it was fun. Anyway, that was just my fun little story about subleasing. Rafterman says, Lloydminster is both Saskatchewan and Alberta. Okay, so does it have like the actual border between the provinces run right through it? That's kind of cool. Mary says, hit the like button, everyone. Yeah, just slam on that like button. Let's turn it blue. Let's push this out to everybody and their dog. And Richard says 1.33 fertility rate for $2,000 rent. No wonder. Yeah, absolutely. It is pretty bad that way. And Ian's girlfriend is cranking the tunes. I'll have to catch this on the replay. Peace out. All right, take care, Ian. We'll talk to you soon again. And Richard says, we still can't sublet in Montreal. I got mine subleased. Yeah. So and that's what I had done. It wasn't even that I subletted. I just basically, I sent an email to the landlord and said, by the way, here's the contact information for the person taking over. And I got an email, I think, back a couple of days later, and she was like, oh, okay. So I was just like, wow. Yeah, I can't believe it went that fast, but it was hilarious. And Vic says, sounds like a Seinfeld episode. Candace with that sublease story. It kind of was like that. Sometimes I get into funny situations, and that was definitely one of them. Prairie says banana bread bartering. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I know the taxi driver gave you cash. Oh, you can't. These are just the funny things in life. I could not believe it. But it worked out really, really well. Paul says, "Wow, I forgot about today's video, and you are live." Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Paul says, "We only had one child, so we're not replacing ourselves." All right. Well, at least you're getting almost halfway there, so that's not too bad. All right, let's pull out that next news story, and hope I remember what it is since I lost all my notes. Um, oh, Canada's GDP. All right. So we had some GDP data that came out, and basically, what we were looking at was it was basically month over month GDP for November, and we were up, I believe it was 0.3%. So we were up a little bit, and it was actually slightly more than what was expected. I think we were expected to be up like 0.1%, if I remember correctly. So we actually did have our GDP come up a little bit, and the beautiful thing is our Q4 GDP is looking in total to be up about 1.5%. So that, once again, that shows our economy is a little bit stronger, and it does show that we're not even close to a technical recession at this point. So I know that I was thinking there was a possibility of a technical recession in the first part of this year, but I'm not so certain. I was going to say certain. I'm not so certain anymore. I think there is a possibility we could completely miss it, and have our soft landing, have our rate cuts, have all that fun. So we'll have to see how that is all going to work out. And Paul says, will there be a tech bubble? All those tech companies with great earnings, Meta paying a dividend, etc. Well, is it a bubble? That's the question you have to answer. I mean, it's probably a bubble, yes. But I don't think I think we're in the early part of the bubble. I don't think it's something where we're going to see tech crash anytime soon. If anything, I think there's still money to be made in tech, and it's kind of be interesting. One of the things I'm planning to do in the 0 to 100K challenge, because this kind of relates to tech, is I'm actually going to be looking at two particular ETFs. So one is, I think it's HXQ and QQCC. So basically, QQCC is the covered call version of HXQ. So I'm going to put in a little chunk of money in both of them, and we're going to leave that in that portfolio just because it'll be neat to see which one makes the most money, which one has the best total return after a while. Now, here's my philosophy. When it comes to a covered call, they don't do as well in as you move into bull markets. They do a lot better in sideways and sometimes in downward moving markets. So I do see HXQ as having that ability to basically really, really, really benefit as we move into the bull and as tech continues to, well, bubble in this case. So it'll be really interesting to see how that all is going to look once we get there. Now, HXQ has, of course, exposure to the Magnificent Seven and a lot of other different tech companies. So that is going to be a lot of fun to see how that all works out. Paul says, so if you already have Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, don't chase Meta after it really went up. Yeah, it's kind of one of these interesting things. See, Meta is one of the stories on today's news. So we are going to get to Meta, and we're going to have a good conversation about Meta here in a little bit. But Yeah, it's one of these situations where if you're already really, really exposed, you don't always have to keep on adding. You don't have to chase all of them. And if you're in a situation where you're like, I don't know which one to get, well, that's where ETFs, things like HXQ come in that can give you that opportunity to get a good exposure without you having to do a whole bunch of footwork as well. And Skiz is saying, so much to invest in, so little money to invest. Yeah, that can be a situation. So sometimes, like if you are in a situation, so let's just say if you are a new investor and you don't have a lot of money, like maybe let's say you've got like 200 bucks a month to invest or even less, you got $50 a month. In a case like that, it's really difficult to try to create a good solid foundation with individual companies. So normally, if you're in a situation like that, I would almost recommend really start looking at some ETFs because that becomes a good way to get that instant diversification because things I always look at it this way. You may not be making a lot of money or have a lot of money to invest today. And in cases like that, invest what you can. Look at what kind of diversification you can get, whether it be an ETF. Then, on the outside of your investing, start looking at, well, how can I increase my income in the real world? How can I, do I need a side hustle or do I need some training to get a better job? Things like that. It's kind of that whole thing, especially if you're a younger person. You're always going to be looking forward at what'll pay me more money. How can I make more money? How can I, have more to invest? And you don't want to fall into the trap. And this is a trap a lot of people fall into. When they finally get that job, the next job that maybe pays them, let's say it pays them 25% more than what they were getting before, they start to increase all of their lifestyle stuff. So for example, it's like, oh, well, now that I make 25% more, I can have a nicer car. I can have a nicer apartment. Well, you can, absolutely, but that comes with a cost. And that comes with a cost that you're not really pumping a lot more into your investing, which means, you're keeping your snowball at a nice slow pace. So what I would say, honestly, is if you're making next to nothing and right now you're at a point that you're sacrificing a lot, well, yeah, of course you're going to put some of that money into that, but don't put all of it into that. If you have a raise and you want to increase your lifestyle, maybe if you could only take 50% of the extra that you make for increasing your general lifestyle and things that you're buying and stuff like that, and put the other 50% towards investing. So just a couple little things to do like that. Just don't get caught up because so many people get caught up. Like you look at somebody who's making a lot of money. If they're also spending a lot of money and they don't have a lot left over at the end of the month, they can be worse off than somebody who's not making a lot of money, but they're using their money much more efficiently. So just something to sort of, one of those bones to chew on, I guess. Vic says S&P 500 at 5,000 soon. All right. No, the S&P 500 is doing well. It's absolutely doing well. I mean, we're getting some pretty good numbers in the US. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the meta story here in just a moment. MGK only has 88 sticks or around that. Okay. Or you mean stocks. Okay. So there we go. King of Day says market index funds for the win, saves you from the FOMO. So FOMO, fear of missing out. That's one of those things. If you invest using FOMO and FUD, you're going to turn into one of these people who buy at the high and sell at the low, which is the exact opposite of how you make money on the market. So you want to be really, really, really careful. If you're an emotional investor and you're an emotional investor, then some of these index funds are probably perfect for you to help try to remove a lot of that temptation. I think was it Warren Buffett who said that investing is like a bar of soap. The more you handle it, the less you have. So that's just something to always keep in mind. Vic says, that's what a lot of callers to Dave Ramsey say. Can't make ends meet with 200K annual income. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Now, keep in mind, if you're making 200K annual income, there's probably a good chance that you went to university for a long time and you may have a ton of debt. So a lot of student loan debt. But that's the whole thing. Just because you're making more If you've also got a really nice car and you've got everything to keep up with the Joneses, you probably got credit cards maxed to the limit. You've got all of that extra debt. And so at the end of the month, you may not have that much money left over. Just something to keep in mind there. All right. Paul says, I bought Meta January 10th at $368.50 and got spooked and sold it for the same price, $368.50 on January 11th. Yeah, and you see, and now it's like 400 and what is it, 470-ish in that area. So yeah, that happens. All right. We'll get to we'll just pull up the next story as we're moving along here. We'll pull Paul off of the story. So Manulife has struck up a deal with Loblaws. So basically how this is looking is Manulife, Manulife Financial, they do a lot of these sort of insurance things. So health insurance, where you can get prescriptions covered and all of that. So like, if your job goes through Manulife, then, your prescriptions are covered. Or you may have a copay or something like that, depending on how, whatever deal is set up between your employer and Manulife. Well, Manulife has signed a deal with Loblaws, saying that if you are on a Manulife drug plan, you have to use it for Loblaws for a lot of, not all, but for a lot of their medications. So I think a lot of the things that, like a lot of the cancer medications, for example, are the ones that you would have to go to Loblaws for. Now, a Loblaws pharmacy is not just the store, but also Shoppers Drug Mart. Loblaws owns Shoppers Drug Mart, so you have them as well. But it's kind of an interesting thing where you get this deal popping up. And now in the US, this is a normal thing. This happens a lot, so you have to kind of keep in mind that we're kind of moving a little bit in that direction. But yeah, Manulife and Loblaws, they're now they're now pretty close buddies. So one of those things to sort of keep in mind. Richard says, people buy high when they want to buy low. Yeah, it is. It's really one of those things about timing the market. It's very hard to time the market. Now you can use, there are tools you can use to try to help you time the market, but they're not foolproof. You take something like technical analysis. So you may be looking at a pattern that has a 60% chance of breaking to the upside. Well, guess what? There's that other 40% of it going to the downside, and that will do it. So it doesn't, and most people who are new, they've got no, it's almost like going to Vegas and rolling the dice. But when you do something like dollar cost averaging, so you're buying, let's say every Tuesday at noon, you buy, $100 worth of stock A. That there means that sometimes you're actually buying it when it's really cheap. Sometimes you're buying it when it's more expensive. Other times you're buying it in the middle. But over time, what that does is you end up, when you look at your average cost price, it comes in at where the average is. So you don't get into that situation where you always keep buying it at the top by mistake. And, and I hope, and perhaps even selling at the bottom. You don't want to be doing that. So it's kind of one of those things. So if you're an emotional person, that's the other thing. So use ETFs or, come into a rigorous dollar cost average strategy just to keep your own emotions from having anything to do with your investing. Because that, that's, your emotions will tank you. They will absolutely tank you. Paul says, when I worked at TELUS, if you use the TELUS pharmacy mailed to you, you got 10% more coverage. Okay, look at that. There we go. Yeah, good old TELUS. And that's just, I think that's going to be the wave of the future. Like you'll probably see that with a lot of things. So, that's going to be interesting. Jordan says, does Loblaws own everything that offers PC brands? I think for the most part. So yeah, Loblaws owns, the Loblaws. They own the superstores. They own the No Frills. Then of course Shoppers Drug Mart. So those are the ones I can think of. But there's probably other smaller ones that they may own as well. So Richard says, looking at short and longer periods with the right indicators. Yeah, that's the whole thing. looking at the indicators, understanding how things move, but having patience because you take it. If you're looking at a particular stock, if it is a stock that um, is solid, has good performance, has good fundamentals, and you go and buy in and then it drops down, it's going to come back. But you have to have the patience in that case. So in a situation like that, if you're doing a shorter term trade, so let's say you're swing trading, you can ride it down and ride it right back up. But at the same time, like here's the thing. If you have an idea, like if you're using technical analysis and you chart, for example, the supports and then the resistances, so up and down, so you get the channel that it's working in. You can always look at like here's what I do. So if I'm looking at a particular asset, I will look at my channel. When it breaks down, I will normally have a stop loss in there and I'll sell it. But I'm gonna watch it as it goes down because I've already sold it. So let's say I sold it at $10. I'm gonna watch it go down, and when it's down around, maybe let's say it goes all the way down to 9 because it had a really, really bad fall. I'm gonna be in there at the 9, or as soon as I see it reversing, I see it bouncing off an even lower support, I'm probably gonna buy it back in there and ride it back up. So it's just one of those ways that you can make a little bit of money that way. Vic says, my goal is to be a generational level client with Wealth Simple. There you go. Or with WTS. I assume you're talking Wealth Simple. Maybe, maybe not, but that works. And yeah, dreaming big. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with dreaming big. Shoot for the moon. And if you miss, you'll at least, maybe you'll at least be in orbit. So that's not a bad strategy. Let's see. Paul says, showed money guy Nick Houston HMM.A. He said he never heard of it and added to his watch list. He makes iPhone invest apps for ETFs and has a YouTube channel. A lot of people missed HMM.A. Like a lot of people. And even when I started popping it up in my lists a year ago, people are looking at it and, and a few people I were talking to in the community, they're like, what's HMM.A? And I was like, trust me, Hammond is going to do some stuff this year. Both them and HPS.A. And nobody listened. But now, at least because I've been sort of preaching them for the 2023, people are now looking and going, holy banana bread. I wish I had got in. Or some people who did catch my list and said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do some due diligence on this one and get in. They're very, very happy right now. So I just love Hammond. I'm just leaving it at that. Paul says, try to not mess with stock you bought that you have a conviction for. Yeah, that's the thing. If you have a conviction for it, if you have a strong belief in the company and the company has good fundamentals, if they go down, who cares? If anything, them going down, we're not talking if you're a short-term trader, but if you're a long-term trader, if they're going down, if anything, rejoice. You can probably get maybe you can get some stocks in that's below your adjusted cost base. That's not a bad thing. Mario says, I saw your question, Paul, on Nick Houston live video yesterday. Well, there we go. Skiz says, fundamentals and technical analysts are useless nowadays. The entire market is just buy what you use. Yeah, the problem, and this is one problem, and Skiz is right. It used to be much, much easier to sort of predict things because now we're at a point where a lot of the big institutional investors are using AI. They're using AI to sort of plot things out, and they can move really, really fast compared to somebody like me who's over here drawing my resistances and my supports and and analyzing it on the screen. Well, an AI can do that in 10 seconds, like bang, boom. And here's an interesting thing. I just discovered there is something called Financial Wizard. It's a version of ChatGPT. And this thing is really, really cool. Like I can put in a stock and it will give me its short-term prediction, short to mid-term prediction on where it thinks the price will be. So really, 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 really interesting. I've been playing with it a bit. I'm not willing to trust its analysis, but so far it actually hasn't been that bad. So Terry says, I bought Loblaws at $75, something, and sold at 96 because I thought that was smart. Bought TELUS at its tippity top, quite a tidy sum of $40,000 Canadian funds. Yeah, there's one of these things. And here's the thing, here's the thing, it doesn't hurt. Like if you buy something, let's say, for example, with Loblaws, so where Terry bought it at 75, sold at 96, wonderful, profits, perfect. If Loblaws still looks to be doing really, really good, doesn't, you can buy in again. I mean, maybe you buy in again at 97, and you ride it up a bit further. But, at 96, if Terry was thinking, okay, well, it might be towards the top and gets out, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So, I always say anytime you end a trade where you have profits, it's a good thing. It is a really, really good thing. Skid says, we can't even explain a 20% in Hammond. Just happened out of the blue. Yeah, it was a crazy thing. And here's a funny thing. I mean, I had added 3 more stocks of Hammond for my January buy in the challenge, and I was happy because I had done it before that little explosion at the end of the month. But yeah, and even now, a lot of people are saying, okay, well, should I get in now? And I'm like, well, okay, you've missed a lot of the explosion. I still think the price is going up over the long term. But if I was at a position right now where I wanted to buy into HMM.A, I'm probably gonna sit on it for a bit and see if it corrects. See if we get a bit of a correction first. But yeah, unless of course if you're DCAing, then just DCA. That's the nature of that game. Paul says, I have seen online articles about new developments not having enough transformers for electricity. Yeah, absolutely. And I looked. So there was Hammond. I was looking at them, and I was also looking at there was a U.S. company, and oh my God, my mind has gone blank. But they were much more expensive, but they were in the same business, and they were also experiencing quite a bit of good growth. Not quite as good as Hammond, but similar. So, and that's the thing. Yeah, absolutely. So transformers are always going to be in high demand. That's one of the things I love about Hammond as well. They're in a market that I don't think is really going to have a bad day anytime soon. Hammond equals banana bread. Yeah, absolutely. Paul says, TELUS at the top, April 2022 was $34. Yeah, exactly. I mean, stocks traditionally, unless there's something fundamentally wrong with a stock, over time it should go up. There are exceptions, but usually by looking at the fundamentals, examining what's going on with the company, you can get a good idea of what is going on. So that's going to be really, really interesting. Paul says, are Hammond insiders buying more shares? I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the Hammond insider buyers, insider buying. I haven't looked at that in a little bit, but it'd be interesting to take another gander at that. But here's the thing too, though. When you have a stock that explodes, like what Hammond did, there is going to be some inside selling. There will absolutely be some because, if you're sitting there and you're an employee and all of a sudden, bang, all these stocks that you've been sitting on that you have are worth a lot more, there's going to be some people who are going to sell. There will absolutely. It makes sense. Paul says HMMA does the transformers and HPSA does electrical parts. Yeah, to a certain extent, they're very, very similar. Like it's almost like they're offshoots of the same company, and they kind of are, to be honest, because they were both made by the same father and sons. So they're very, very, very similar. Let's just put it that way. And according to Skiz, they're transformers, robots in disguise. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, let me pull up the next story here. We'll get this going. And it is the meta one. so meta went meta. That's what we're going. Now, I don't have all of the data, but that's cool. It's really, really interesting. So when we had when we moved into the bear market, of course, tech went first. So tech fell before anybody else did. And Meta was one of the hardest hit. Like Meta was just plummeting for the longest time. Pretty much They fell for about a year and a month, so about 13 months of falling. And I heard a lot of people going, buy. It's time to buy. We need to be buying into Meta. And I heard a lot of people. I know back then we had that was back in the day when we still had High Rye out there and a few others. And a lot of people were like, it's time to buy. But, there was just a lot of people. Nobody understood where the bottom was. But we did hit the bottom October, not last October, but the following October. So 2022. And they've been on an upward trajectory ever since. And Meta has just been doing really, really well. And now we're at a point where they also announced a 50-cent dividend, and that was announced on Thursday. So we got a dividend now on Meta. They've done really, really well. It looks like nothing can stop them, but I do think they have. I think they have more runway. I do think they have more runway, and it's going to be very, very interesting. I know they're working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Imagine, let's take Facebook. Imagine Facebook having a built-in AI that you can just start talking to. I don't think we're that far away from that. So that's going to be really, really, really interesting. And you also have to look at too. When you look at the Facebook part of it, one of the areas that Meta has really done well is their advertising has been picking up like crazy. But a lot of the younger people are like, nobody uses Facebook anymore. Well, yeah, that's not true. Maybe the younger, the millennial, I would say the millennials are using Facebook, but the Gen Z are not really using Facebook. They're using other stuff, but they'll go on Facebook to communicate with family and that. But right now, there's so many boomers. You got Generation X, you've got the millennials. That's a huge chunk. That's a giant, giant chunk. And those are the people using Facebook. So I think Meta right now, I think their position is pretty solid. So just something to keep in mind. All right. Now, where the heck? Here we go. Skiz says, sounds like Hammond is vertically integrated. I think Hammond is run really, really well. They're in they have products, both versions of Hammond that are in high demand. So I think this is going to be, I think they're going to be strong for a long time, to be honest. Sammer says supply chain issues soon again. Maritime shipping overwhelmed. Oh, yeah, I've heard mumbles of supply chain issues popping up again, and that's unfortunate. That could be very, very, very unfortunate. But the beautiful thing is, any inflation that's caused by supply chain issues, that is transitory. That inflation, because it will go away once those issues are resolved. But let's hope these issues don't turn into a nightmare. Jordan says the only thing that could really affect transformer production would be if something went wrong with copper production. Yeah, and copper is another one of those things. Like right now, there's a lot of great Canadian companies producing a lot of copper. So that to me is a good thing. Vic says, I'm buying China. Every ETFs looks like a deal, not overpriced like North American markets. Yeah, keep in mind though, there's international exposure is definitely good for your portfolio, but China does have that one issue right now where the US is really kind of trying to push away from China. That could be an issue. So that's always something to keep in the back of your mind when you're talking about China. Let's see. Vic says Meta has to plan to keep paying dividends as this was not a special dividend. As far as I know, this is a new ongoing quarterly dividend, but we'll have to see. Like right now, it hasn't even shown up. At least it didn't when I was doing the research for for my notes, which I lost. That which is funny. But yeah, that part there, we'll have to figure out how that's going to sort of turn out. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't even know exactly what the yield percentage is. I know it's pretty small. I didn't actually do the math yet. So let's see. Pat says holding Meta since $200. I couldn't resist and sold out at $480. I want to repurchase it again. Yeah, not bad. So I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, once things settle down and all of this news after their earnings, normally after the earnings, you go up for a bit and then normally you will have a little bit of a correction. So if you're looking to get back in, you might be able to get in at maybe 460, maybe even 450, depending on how big of a correction they have. So that would be kind of interesting. Terry's back again saying hello, Mountain Investing. And Vic is once again saying, everyone laughed at Metaverse. Now look at Mark. Jacked, trained martial arts, MMA killer. There we go. There we go. Yeah, the Metaverse didn't, I think Metaverse, it was more or less timing. I think it was timing that kind of messed that up. But now I've been watching some of these review videos on the Vision Pro, the new Apple headset, and they look absolutely insane. Like I was watching somebody and they actually were doing screen recordings from inside the goggles. And it's like you could put these goggles on and then you could like look around your room and you could maybe put a web page over there, a web page over there. And then, it was just like, holy cow, this is just absolutely kind of cool. Now they're not available yet in Canada. They're supposed to be available sometime later in 2024 in Canada and the UK, but these things just look absolutely crazy. And if people go really, really nuts over them, this could be a big win for Apple. This could be a very big win for them. Paul says, I noticed these tech companies got rid of the employees sitting the roof, so these employees don't work for competition. Silicon Valley TV show reference. Okay. Pat says, I set a limit for Amazon, but it didn't get to the 175. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. And here's the thing, though. If there are companies you're sort of waiting for them to go, to hit a particular amount, it doesn't hurt to set a limit, to put in a limit buy for what companies you're looking at. Like if you know where you plan to get in, do that. Because here's the simple thing. If you don't have a limit set, so let's say, for example, with, let's say, Banana Co., my favorite fictional company, I want to buy them at $50 and they're right now worth $60. So if I don't set a limit for 60 and all of a sudden they wick down to 60 or down to 50, sorry. And by the time I got everything in, by the time I enter in my order, they may already be gone. But if you at least have that limit set and it wicks down to 50, maybe I wanted to buy 100 shares, but maybe I don't get 100 shares, but maybe I do get 20. So, at least I got 20 at where I was willing to pay. And then if it wicks down later, maybe I'll get a few more. So it doesn't hurt to have, to have a limit order if you know where you want to buy something at. Let's see. Vic says, congrats, Pat. And congratulations, Pat. I'm going to have a drink of coffee here. And once again, hey, Starbucks, look at me drinking from your mug. Okay. And one of these days, I will have, I may have somebody from Starbucks head office who's looking for some financial advice and, and that pulls up. Because sometimes it's funny. Like it's interesting. I had somebody on one of my videos, they were like, oh, I really like your background. That was when I was playing with that weird Toronto one. And they're like, I really like that. I'd like to use that in a Zoom. Where'd you get it from? And so I basically replied and said, I did it. I basically made it with AI. I said, I still have the file if you want it. And so, I said, just email me through the link on my site. And they did. And then, I actually found out who they were. And apparently it was like a lawyer. And I was like, oh, some lawyer here wants to use this kind of weird Toronto background that I made just because I was playing around with the background on the videos for a bit. So I was like, yeah, here you go. I send it to him. So, I find it kind of funny that there's just some lawyer somewheres on Zoom meetings using this Toronto background. And I'm like, it's also kind of cool. It's like, I have no problem. I'll send it out to this people. Like, anyway, Pat says, Google is another good purchase right now. Yeah, I do like Google. Absolutely. Terry says, hello again. Curious, will you be looking at Titanium Transportation Group Incorporated? Well, I had no plan. I had no plans to, but I can throw them into the pool for you. So let me pull up my pool here. There we go. The deep dive pool. So here we go. Titanti. There we go. Titanium. There we go. It's in the pool. So it'll come up for a vote. And I actually have to put up the the vote for this next week's one. So that's coming up pretty darn soon too. Okay. Vic says, agreed. Only a matter of time till Google goes parabolic. Yeah, you gotta love it when a stock goes parabolic. Then everyone will be regretting not buying now. All right. Will Meta having a dividend make Google, Amazon have a dividend? They're all mature businesses. It's hard to say. You never know. Like it could, but I can't definitively say. But here's the thing. I'm sure that there's no reason why they couldn't all have like even a tiny dividend. It doesn't even have to be a full percent. Just a little something. Vic says, we have to celebrate each other's success and support each other during losses. Yeah, absolutely. That's what community is all about. I know right now over on the Facebook group, there is this one little chat room that a lot of people are in there talking constantly. Like I'll go in, I'll look at something. I may go away from the computer and I come back and it's like, oh my gosh, there's like 20 messages since the last time I looked in. I'm like, but yeah, it's pretty busy. So, but definitely, of course, any of you who aren't on the Facebook, it's just Mountain Finance. It's a private group. Send me click on it. You have to send a request to invite. I'll let you in. Don't worry. Paul says, Vision Pro, wait till they have skin conditions from that mask being on their face too much. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Now, the person I was watching, like, I thought the masks were heavy and that, they'd be something that would wear on you for a while. But I know the one person I was watching, I think it was a guy by the name of Greg, who does a lot of these tech research things. He was like, it was very comfortable. So we have to see how comfortable it is. Now, the actual mask itself sits on this kind of a very cushiony thing that sort of a magnet holds them together. Yeah, eventually someday when I have one, it just, to me, it looked really, really, really cool. I can't. Now, mind you, I do have a lot of Apple products. So I do like Apple products. I love how well they all work together. Let's see. Whoops. Vic says, we've been green for a while. Nice. I'm investing in J&J. So Johnson & Johnson, which has a cream for that skin problem. There we go. See, Pat says, sorry, meant I wanted to sell Amazon at 175. I bought in at 98. You had a confused look. Oh, maybe. Or I might have been confused. Who knows why? It could have just been, yeah. Anyway, Mary says, buy it from Shoppers, Vic. Hey, Mary, good to see you again. Lisa's in the house saying, hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late and missed most of it. No worries. We're not even through the news yet. And here's the funny thing. I lost all my news. I had a crash 5 minutes before the stream start, and it completely lost all my news. So I'm pulling it all from memory. All I have are my little pictures on the side to let me know where we are. So we'll go with that. Pat says, Candace, what do you think of Meta stock split? I like stock splits, and I would love to see another stock split with Meta. Anytime one of these bigger companies, like bigger stock price companies, have a stock split, to me, it's great because it does allow people to get in easier. Now, mind you, with Wealthsimple and fractional shares, you can get in pretty easy because you don't have to buy it in whole numbers, unless you're like me. And I will admit this, I hate buying fractional. I absolutely do. I want to have 5 stocks. I don't want to have 4.7832164811 stocks. I want the 5. But that's fine. Vic says, anyone do Norbit's Gambit on National Bank Direct Brokerage? I've never heard of anyone trying. Now, here's an interesting thing. Brandon, not Beavis, a different Brandon, was mentioning, I think in the last live stream, that he was having some success on EQ Bank, moving money from Canadian to American into an American account over there on EQ Bank, and then transferring it American into the American account. So that's something that might be worth looking at. I have never tried it that way, but that might be a way to completely avoid, that might be, yeah. might be a way to completely avoid those conversion fees. So yeah, that to me sounded really, really good. So thank you, Brandon, once again for that piece of advice. Richard says, let's see, are people walking around with mask groups on their face? Well, here's the thing. Imagine if you're out, if you're out in the summer, sitting back with your mask on, and you end up getting a tan, or, so you end up having this one little bit really white area on your forehead. So that's kind of funny. Akadas says, I don't buy fractional shares either. Yes, absolutely. All right. And here we go. We got $2 more into the challenge. So I will move that over there tomorrow. And Paul is saying, buy more HMM.A. There we go. There we go. Of course, HMM.A is a little more than $2, but I will put that towards another share of HMM.A. Terry goes, wonderful at TTNM. Many thanks, and as grateful as one such as I can be, I like a lot of your show. Well, that's good. But that's not all of the show. There's probably parts you don't like, but that's okay. There's parts of mine. Every so often, it's kind of funny. Now, this is as a YouTuber, like I generally have a feeling about a video after I've made it. And I will tell you that sometimes I'll make a video and I'll be like, wow, that video absolutely sucks. I just don't like it. And the funny thing is, one of the videos that I didn't like that much was my OAS video, the one that has 16,000 views. So the number one video on the channel, 16,000 and counting. And this is a video that gets views like every single day. People are watching this video. It just doesn't stop. And I was just like, I can do much better after I did that one. And I have. I've made some.
I don't understand.
That's okay. Watch is talking to me again. I've made better videos, like retirement videos, than that one. And they just can't get the traction. For some reason, people really like that one OAS video, and I don't understand. So anyway, that's kind of funny. Prairie says, LOL, I'm the same way. I would feel cheated with partial shares. Only buy whole shares. Yeah, exactly. I mean, excuse me. I love the whole shares, which is why I don't have like a fraction of the Berkshire shares. They're a little bit out of my price range. Let's see. Vic says some CDR stocks on par with U.S. stock prices. NVIDIA to report also CSU. There we go. Yeah, now I did hear, I know there was a story, and I didn't get a chance to look at it. It came in after I'd finished making the news, about some kind of a deal with NVIDIA happening with Canada. So I don't know if that had anything to do with CSU. I don't know what it was. I didn't have a chance to look at it. Let's see. Vic says, hoping for Constellation to pull back. Well, good luck on that. Good luck. Day after day, another high. They have been absolutely going crazy. Vic says, have they started the Super Bowl? Oh, is today the Super Bowl? I didn't even know. Oh, if I'd known today was the Super Bowl, I would have made a thumbnail to trick people into thinking they were coming here for the Super Bowl pregame. No, I don't know. I don't want to trick people, but it sounded funny in my head. Why not XIT, Vic? 25% CSU. There you go. And Vic does have XIT already. Okay, let's go to the next news story. We're almost through the news. We're pretty darn close. Okay. MIC mortgage risks. All right. Oh, this is one that I'm like, I wish I had the notes on it. So basically, what this is little stories. So MIC stands for Mortgage Investment Company. And these are these little mortgage companies that will accept you for a mortgage when the big banks won't, because you don't pass the qualifications. So what ended up happening is during the pandemic, a lot of these companies started sprouting up, and they started to make a whole bunch. Like there was a lot of people who wanted those really low rates on different mortgages. And so there's a lot of people that are in with MIC companies. So now we're at a situation where we got high rates. We got these things coming up for these mortgages coming up for renewal. So there is fear that there could be a lot of pressure on the MIC companies. So these mortgage investment companies are going to be hurting. Now, some of them are loving this because they're thinking this is a way to get big because, we're fine. But that MIC over there is not fine. We can just buy them or we can merge with them. So a lot of them are looking at ways that they can sort of become bigger MICs, but there should be a lot of pain in the MIC mortgage area because of the rate hike. So we'll just sort of keep it at that. All right. And Vic says, first of all, Ciso, hey Ciso, says no Super Bowl next week in Vegas. Okay, so it's next week. All right, next week I'll have to put a football or something on the thumbnail. NFL hype machine out to start a week early. Let's see. How do I buy a bank repossessed car? I don't know. There used to be. Now, I used to know this guy. His name was Mike. And he used to always have a nice car. And I asked him because, this is back when I was in university at the time. And I was like, how can you always afford these nice cars? And he was like, I buy them at police auctions. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, this car may have belonged to a drug dealer or something. The police, they seized on it and then they auctioned these things off. And he mentioned that a couple of his cars had bullet holes in them. I was like, oh, okay. So, that might be a way to get a cheap cars. Look at some of these auctions. Now, I imagine banks probably have similar things. I've never really looked into that, Vic, but you might be able to get a bank repossessed car through perhaps an auction. Because they've got no use for the car. They want to turn it into money. Let's see. Paul says MICs only want people for 2 years. Okay, there we go. So 2 years only. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Vic says my stealership near $200 an hour mechanic rate. Oh wow, a stealership. That's actually funny. Oh no, this is the one that's going to completely botch me. The crypto corner. I had basically a lot of data for the crypto corner this time around, but I will throw some crypto stuff at you anyway. Let me pull back to here. So one thing that I have definitely heard is that FTX. One of the things is they've been sort of playing around with the idea of trying to recover and eventually coming back, but they have given up. They have officially given up on that, and every single all of their assets are being completely liquidated, and that money is going back to people who held Bitcoin or other crypto on their exchange. So that is no longer a thing. Okay, here we go. I get another question here. Nettie, are you still at Blossom Social app? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I am one of the ambassadors over there at I was going to say over there at Nettie, at Blossom Social app. I'm in there. I'm watching. This is the thing. If you're over there and you're not following me, you need to be following me because I'll follow you back, and then I can comment on your stuff because I do always go through, all the time looking to see what you guys are saying and throwing my 2 cents in as well. So that's always a good thing. And also, if you want to see what's going on, in the 0 to 100K challenge, that's over there too. I've actually got that portfolio hooked up to my Blossoms. That way you can go in there and take a look. And it also serves as another thing too. I can actually use Blossom to pull up some really good data. So I'm looking at it from 2 different perspectives. So yes, absolutely, Blossom. And those of you who have not yet tried Blossom, down below, when you go to the extra info on this live stream, there is a link for Blossom. So get over there. Hook yourself up. Hook up with me, as in follow, and let the Blossom fun begin. Jordan says, ask your local lot. The repos always get brought back there. Okay, there we go. So Jordan knows what happens to these repossessed cars, that they end up at the local lot. So, and that might make sense. I think there's probably a lot less issues with some of these repossessed cars than with, the ones show up in the police auctions. Let's see. Richard says Fidelity BTC ETF in your RS and TFSA. Ah, yeah, there we go. That's not a bad thing. So yeah, when it comes to, well, here's the thing though. If you're going to have a BTC ETF, um, I think I did that recent video, so you can look at some of the rates that we have in Canada. But right now, you do have some cheaper rates with the US ones, and you may be interested in going that route as well. So just to put that in, here's an interesting thing, by the way. The video coming out on Tuesday. Those of you who are channel members, you can see it on Monday, but we're going to actually look at some American stocks this time around. We're going to look at some American narrow moat stocks. And I found some pretty cool little stocks that I think for the most part, nobody's talking about them. So, we'll have a look at that with that next video. So that's going to be kind of cool. Let's see. Paul says Ron Butler sometimes has the more established MIC companies on his YouTube show. They talk about the fly-by-night MICs, overcharging fees, etc. Yeah, and that's the thing with these MICs. If you're going to a mortgage investment company, one, they could charge you more because you're desperate. You can't get anything with one of the big six, so they can charge you higher interest rates, and they can justify it because your credit's probably not as good. So it's one of the situations where it's like they've got you over a barrel when you go in with it. So yeah, I would never use an MIC personally. Vic says, what are the risks of HSAV.U, Horizon's cash ETF, but they closed due to too much interest? So it just keeps going up and up. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't actually read a lot about HSAV in regards to it being closed. But here's the thing. A lot of times if somebody closes an ETF, now here's what I would have to know, Vic. When they closed it, are they still allowing those holding it to continue holding it? Or did they just close it to new people coming in? Because it kind of doesn't make sense that way. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Vic. I'm going to leave that as is. Let's see. It is CAD. Paul says, Blossom will not show dividends for brand new ETFs like UCSH.U, Horizons USD, HISA ETF. Support said wait a year. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's one of those things too, because what they have to do behind the scenes for Blossom too, as well as, it's not just the pricing, it's also just the diversification and breaking it up to make sure that your diversification sector part in Blossom reflects it correctly. So yeah, sometimes that will happen. And I've noticed too, a lot of not screeners, but a lot of watch lists as well. Sometimes newer ETFs don't show up for a while, but yeah, I'm hoping to with Blossom, because Blossom right now, Blossom is almost a year old, not quite, but very close to a year old. So as Blossom keeps getting bigger and bigger, that means that we're going to be able to have much more support behind the scenes. And so hopefully, let's say a year from now, newer ETFs will, get put up a lot faster. So just kind of a thing here. I don't have any insider information on that back end part of the business, but next time we have a meeting, I should almost, if I remember, I'll ask that. Let's see. HSAV has premium over NAV prices. Let's see. HSAV does not pay dividend. Capital gains is the appeal. Okay. That's, yeah. And I know I did a video I don't want to say a long time ago, but I did a video recently on a lot of the different cash ones. And I think I did touch on yeah. I can't talk today. I think I did touch on HSAV on that one, but because I remember that there was one that just did capital gains, and I believe it was HSAV. Wow. I'm gonna have a good sip this time. So yeah, that is something to sort of keep in mind. All right. Just give me a second here. Let's get rid of that. And let's move to a regular full screen here. There we go. Perfect. All right. So what we get left here today is if you guys get any more questions, throw them at me. We'll hit them up. We'll take a look and see what is going on. which is fun. So yeah, coming up, we do have the American narrow moat stock. So that's coming up for Tuesday. And I will tonight, either tonight or tomorrow morning, I will get the poll up for our next deep dive because that's going to be Friday. So we're going to come up with that. Now, I did mention as well that we're really, really, really close to that 3,000. So that is going to be kind of an interesting video because you guys had said that you wanted that parody video. So we're going to do it. It's going to be a parody news video. So I have to figure out how I'm filming it and getting it ready. It's probably, if we hit 3,000 this week, you probably won't see it until next week. But it's going to be fun. It won't take away a spot from any of the regular videos. I'm going to do it as an additional video. So, we'll put that out there. That should be a lot of fun. Now, the next goal after that is, I think at one point I said that we'd do the 3,000, then we do the 5,000, but we'll do the 4,000. So at 4,000, we're going to do that open to close live stream. So, however many hours that is, 7 hours or whatever, or 6, or was it 7.5 hours, something like that. Anyway, we'll do the open to close live stream once we hit the 4,000. So that's going to be fun. I think it's coming up. I don't know how long it will take to get there, but each 1,000 that we hit takes less time than the previous 1,000. So it'll be less than a year for sure. That's the only thing I can say definitively. But that one will be really, really fun. So let's see. Paul says on January 31st, UCSH.U had a bid at 49.99 and an ask at 50. So, there was the bid and ask. But if you put in a buy of 100 shares at 50, it went through right away. Okay, that's interesting. Richard says Fidelity Advantage Bitcoin ETF management fee 0.39%. Yeah, absolutely. Now, with some of these really, really low management fees on these Bitcoin ETFs, on the US ones, some of them, my understanding is that some of them are for 6 months and then they're going to change. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you do decide to grab a Bitcoin US one because you want to avoid you want to get a really, really, really low management fee, just pay attention to what happens in 6 months when that promotion is gone. Like, what does it move up to? Because you can always sell and move at that point to a different one. So just something to keep in mind. Terry says, hi, I have a $1 to $100,000 fund on Wealth Simple. Nice. Very, very cool. I like challenges. Jackie says, I'm a new channel member, joined a few days ago, but I am unclear as to when you are doing lives for the members. I keep missing them. Can you please tell us the days and times? This is really, really easy. Jackie, I believe that you have, I believe that you joined up to the Facebook membership group, to the Facebook group. On the Facebook group, we have pinned at the very top in the featured section, a schedule. I put that there that shows absolutely every single time of when we are having different things. So, for example, lives. So I'm going to, just give me a second here. All right, I'm going to move it over to the other screen and let me share that other screen for you. Entire screen. All right, here we go. Perfect. All right, so this here is this is the Facebook group. So at the top we have a schedule, and I keep it updated. So let me just pull it up here. So as you can see here, these are all of our times. So it starts right up here, February 4th. That's the live stream that we're at right now. But we have next live stream, of course, is our market close. That's on February 7th at 3:45 p.m. But here's the channel member live stream. So that is on February 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So all times are Eastern on this. So that'll be easy for you. So I always keep this up to date. Like right now, I've got everything scheduled up to March 10th. The only thing that's not on here is I haven't dropped in the 3,000 membership. So the 3,000 sub, what do we call it? Our parody video. So that's not on the list, but I keep everything up to date and I keep a very consistent schedule. For the most part, most weeks you'll get a video on Tuesday and Friday at 2 p.m. And then you'll get live streams on Wednesday and Sunday. So Sunday at 4, Wednesday at 3:45, because we want to start before the market close. So that way there, I can have fun and ring this little bell here, which I do on that stream. So it's kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, so this is, this is what we were looking at. There we go. All right, there we go. John Locke says, what is your short and long-term thoughts on TELUS? Short-term thoughts on TELUS is you're going to have more opportunity to buy low. That's my short-term thoughts on TELUS. Long-term, I think they will turn around. Both, I think TELUS and Bell first. I think Rogers has a lot more pain because of all of the extra debt from buying Shaw. But they will turn around on the long term. I think TELUS is a good buy long term, and I think you'll have a lot. It's a good buy long term, and you'll have a lot of time to buy it where it will be still a good buy, because I think they're going to struggle for at least first half of the year. They will, like, as we move into a bull market, they're going to rise. They're just not going to rise as fast initially. So, just something to keep in mind when it comes to TELUS. Let's see here. Richard says, no, this one is on the TSX. All right, I'm not sure what you were. Oh, Fidelity one. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. 0.39%. I should have realized that was the TSX one. Yes, I remember seeing that when I did the recent Bitcoin video. So that is definitely a good one. Yeah, the only, like, the purpose ones have pretty high management fees on them, but the one purpose one that you may be interested in is only the BTCY, only because that's the one that has the covered calls, so you can get a dividend. But keep in mind, you do limit your upside potential on it as well, so it is something to keep in mind. Nettie says, what is your handle at Blossom? I can search it. I think it's just Mountain Finance. So I think it's at Mountain Finance. I don't know here. I think I can put it in here for you. There we go. Whoops, it helps if I spell it right. There we go. Oh, you got it? All right, perfect. So yeah, I'll get the little notification and I will follow you back. Let's see. Mary says, are trailing commissions add on or are they included in the MER? Well, pretty much any expenses are going to be, when you look at the MER, so MER is management expense ratio. It's like the management fee, but it includes everything that the management fee doesn't include. So any expense at all would be included within the management expense ratio. Let's see. Paul says, how does TELUS doing early retirement and voluntary separations lump sums affect the earnings? Future less costs, but for the 2003 and 2004 more costs. I think 1,000 of 4,000 offered left. It comes down to, here's what it's going to boil down to. It boils down to whether or not they had put enough money aside. Now, if they got more interest than they were anticipating, then yeah, it would absolutely hurt some of their numbers temporarily. They're going to bounce back from that. But most times when they are looking at an offering like this, most of them will go on the worst case scenario side. So for example, if they were offering it to 4,000 people, they would be prepared financially to do that. So if only 1,000 went, depends on when they put that money aside. It could actually even help them, which is kind of a funny situation if that's how they did it. So I don't know too much about the actual offering itself, but that's typically how that works. Terry says it's one at the time. Keep going. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. And Prairie is bullish on both TELUS and BCE. I think long term, both of those are going to do really well. They're going to bounce up higher than I think Rogers will. Rogers has a lot more work to do when it comes to that debt. As I mentioned, I do think Rogers, I don't like Rogers as a company, but I think as an investment, I think Rogers is still it's still a good investment, but at the same time, why take all that extra time when I think Talus and Bell are going to get there a lot faster? All right, and Nettie got it. Awesome, awesome. That's a good thing. All right, so we are, we're at about 1 hour and 30 minutes. If you got any last minute questions, now is the time to drop them before we wrap things up. Next week, I guess if it's a Super Bowl, I've got to figure out how can I pull something in there that I got to pull something in that looks Super Bowl wise. So I just have to figure out how I'm going to work that in. And then next week, I will also make sure I don't lose the news because for the most part, I remember most of it. But I mean, there was a couple little pieces of data that I think I wanted to bring up as well. And I think there was one crypto story I totally forgot about. So that's fine. Paul says, I got the TELUS 1000 out of 4,000 from my former union shop. Stuart said there is now 5,500 members versus 6,500 members before. Okay, so that's how you figured out it was 1,000. Interesting. So there's a little bit of insider information there for Paul. But yeah, it's just one of these things. Like right now, too, when you look at the 0 to 100K challenge, you'll notice I've got nothing really in the communication sector. And that's because right now I'm just sort of sitting back. I'm probably am going to add something eventually. But right now I just haven't yet. I haven't felt that that there's any kind of time limit on them. Like I sort of feel they're going to be kind of struggling for a little bit longer before so I have time to pull a trigger on that. But I also look at it this way too. When it comes to diversification, like you don't have to have every single sector completely covered. You don't need to have an even diversification rate across the board. I mean, that looks nice to have that, but if there's a sector you don't like let's say you're one of these people, and I know there are people in this community who absolutely hate the communication sector. You don't have to have any in your system, in your portfolio. Now, if you get some good ETFs, you're probably going to get a little bit of exposure nonetheless. But you can, if there's a sector you absolutely hate, or for example, let's say for example, I like the oil and gas, so I like the energy sector. But if let's say for whatever reason you're completely against the energy sector, there's okay. You can skip it. You can always skip it. There's a lot of sectors out there. And when you actually diversify into the US market as well, they have additional sectors that we don't even have here. So, it's not a terrible thing. Richard says, thoughts on reverse repo ending soon? I don't have any thoughts. To be honest. Let's see. Paul says, like healthcare not doing well, like Johnson & Johnson and United Health. I think that's United Health, UNH. Yeah, it depends. Here's an interesting thing. I will mention this. There is actually one of the companies that's coming up in Tuesday's video, a US company. It's actually a healthcare company. But keep in mind, when you start looking at healthcare in the US, it's a completely different system. They make a profit down in the US. It's not like what we have in Canada. So there are some really good healthcare companies in the States. And you're going to see one of those tomorrow, actually. Or sorry, tomorrow. Well, tomorrow, if you're a channel member. Terry says, I would not have invested so hard in quality TSX and American side quality stocks and Vanguard ETFs due to your sage advice. Okay. So I would not have invested so hard. Yeah. And it's one of those interesting things. I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're saying there. Did I give you bad advice, or is that gave you good advice? I don't know what you're saying. But that's okay. That's part of the fun. It's one of these interesting things. No matter, like when I give advice, we'll just talk a little bit about that. You still want to do your due diligence, right? Even if I come out, like a year ago, I come out and said Hammond is a great company. Hopefully you didn't just go and buy Hammond. I mean, you'll be happy if you did, but hopefully you did a little bit of research on your own end, before you jump into that. So it is one of these things. Like I strongly believe in looking at quality. And I love going into those fundamentals. And that's one of those things I think that you have to do. I think you have to really look at what you're buying because, you don't want to get burnt in the end. And here's the fun thing. Keep in mind, no matter who you are, and no matter what, no matter how great you are at investing, you're going to pick up stinkers. And it's one of the interesting things. Like right now, I do have that one stock, that Petro stock in the challenge that's absolutely tanking. And and I'm not concerned about it because here's the fun thing: if every stock I pick absolutely succeeds, that would be a rare thing. So I kind of like that I got at least one stinker in that portfolio. Now, when we do the rebalancing, we'll look a little harder at that stinker and see, is it something I'm going to hold on to? Or is it something I'm going to look at rebalancing? We'll have to see. I'm probably going to hold on to it because I still have a good faith in that sector itself. But it just goes to show that you're not always going to pick the winners. Nobody can, because nobody can. If you could, you'd be filthy rich. If you knew exactly how to pick the winners every single time, you could just be printing your own money, to be honest. So you're gonna, it's just the way the market works. Prairie says, both T and BCE are below my ACB, but from total return, I am in the black on both. Meanwhile, enjoying the dibs. Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind when you're doing your total return, if it is a company that is giving you a lot of dividends, you want to keep in mind that you need to calculate that in your total return, just because hey, it's the way it works. John says, with communication sector, I think there's good opportunity with the growing number of new Canadians as well as the banking sector. And that's true. I mean, a lot of these newer Canadians are going to be, well, they're going to need phones. You almost can't survive today without a phone. So that is a point. But it's interesting. Rogers has been losing customers. I mean, there was, I think, a news article late this week about that. So keep that in mind. So maybe the other two are picking them up. So Ian says, I'm back. I'm almost in the red again, not counting dividends on EXE. I forgot what the problem is with this stock. Too much debt. Yeah, I think there was quite a bit of debt with them. So, but at the same time, because of the sector that they're in, they do have a certain amount of government funding that does flow into them. So that's not a bad thing. And I do think that that is a sector that, especially as more and more baby boomers start moving into retirement, I think that is a sector that will do well in the future. Probably not as well as some other sectors, but I think it should still be a solid sector. Let's see here. Richard says, do you think not having reduced the bank rates in March was a good idea? Here's the thing. I think we don't want to jump on it too soon. I know a lot of people think, okay, it would be great to have bank cuts in March, but here's the thing. If we want to, the one situation I wouldn't want to see is us cut and then decide that it was too soon and pull back. I'd rather have them be a little bit later at the cutting process than, just to make sure the numbers are moving in the right direction. Because if we had, let's just say, for example, we'll use the U.S. market. So let's say the Fed cut it in March, and then the numbers weren't what they were expecting, and things pull down. They're like, well, we may have cut too soon. We're gonna hype back up. If they were to do that, that would be absolutely that would be a very big buying opportunity on that day if that were to happen. I don't think that would happen. I think if they did cut in March, it could be a situation where we may be down 25 basis points, but they may take longer to sort of decide whether they're going to cut again. So, it's one of these things. Like, I never felt like I was not one of these people who thought they were going to cut in March. I've always sort of been at the, like with the US, I thought May. With Canada, I'm kind of was thinking more June for the first cut. So, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Okay. Ian says, I was thinking the same thing about the boomers with EXE. I think if I was the government and EXA came hat in hand asking for more funding, I would say cut your dividend. That's your worry. Okay. That's fair enough. but I don't know if the government is that savvy when it comes to things like that. I think in this case, it's more or less this is the funding that's available. I don't think it's more or less them approaching with hat in hand. I think it's more or less because they are in extended care. It's more or less here's the funding that's available. This is what you get. So I think it kind of moves from the government to them more than them coming to say this is what we need. And I'm also of the opinion that it's kind of interesting when it comes to elder care in Canada. I really, really feel that it's not good enough. So I think there's a lot of people who are that way. I think the pandemic really, really, really sort of highlighted how bad it is. So I would certainly, it's one of these things like if the government didn't waste money on stupid stuff, we could put money towards like elder care, for example. And here's the thing, and maybe this writing will finally show up on the wall, but the big chunk of the population is getting older. And, eventually government's going to have to look at it and say, okay, we're going to need a lot more funding for everything from old age security to, long-term care. All of these things are going to need a pump in some way, shape, or form. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works out. But if we don't do anything, it's gonna get worse on that upper end when we have this big mass. We've already got the baby boomers moving in there, and they're still coming. They're still flowing. Then we're going to have the Gen X starting to move in there. So it's going to be very interesting. Prairie says, I'm happy rate cuts weren't called. I think good buying opportunities over the next few weeks. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to see when that happens. I'm still thinking, like I said, May for the US. I'll stop. Yeah, I'll nail myself down to June for Canada. Let's see. King of Day. Do you know if we have any website in Canada similar to Truflation in the US? I don't know of any, but I'll keep my eyes open. If I hear of one, I will let you know, either through the live stream, or I'll let you know on Blossom. Good old Blossom. All right, everybody, we've hit the end of another show. It's kind of sad. But you know what? We're going to end the show the way we began it, with a couple of membership stuff. There we go. Give me a second here. Let me pull this up. All right, here we go. There we go. Well, good luck. Here's my last little batch here, and there won't be any more until March. So, well, I mean, maybe not anymore. I mean, you guys can always gift to each other if you want to. It's totally okay. Let's see here. So we got Sandra B. Sandra B won. Glenna won. Change to Spare. Awesome. Let's see. Stefan and Steve Wilson. There we go. We got some. We got some more folks in there. No skiz though. It's like I'm just gonna I think I'm just gonna explode the first time Skiz wins. So we'll have to see. And Ian is throwing in, yeah, it's official. You got to buy your own. And here we go. We're gonna leave it on this one here because this is a great comment. So thank you and have a lovely week. That goes to everybody. Take care. We'll see you all. We'll see you on Wednesday. So Wednesday will be fun. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.